Donald Trump needs you to believe that we all make mistakes, but it's never too late to do the right thing. Joe Biden needs you to believe that no matter what you might think, he's still the same middle-class warrior he's always been. Do you believe them? You're going to need to if either of them are going to be president of the United States. I want to read this real quick. It is a guest essay from Frank Luntz, the veteran focus group and pollster. He wrote this in the New York Times this week. If you're a typical American voter in any party, allow me to let you in on a little secret. What matters most to you in a presidential debate probably isn't the same thing that gets the most attention from the candidates, the campaigns, and their allies in the immediate aftermath of those big televised showdowns. Viewers will quickly decide whether the accusations are fair and the response is effective. From Ronald Reagan's "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago" in 1980, to Barack Obama's emphasizing hope and change in 2008, to Mr. Trump telling Mrs. Clinton in 2016 that she would be in jail if he won. I think those key debate moments made a meaningful difference in shaping the opinion of undecided or wavering voters who related to what they heard. I certainly saw it in my focus groups and in public opinion research. These moments mattered more than any candidate's flub or gaffe. The point of this piece is that voters will respond to things they believe. And that means you have to take big, meaningful moves to get them to that position. A mechanical debate that is respectful is also an unmemorable one. On Thursday, we're going to get a debate full of firsts. The first debate between two presidents. The first debate where the combined age of the two candidates is 158. But it will not be the first to take place in a television studio. That honor goes to the first televised debate. John F. Kennedy versus Richard Nixon. There's a lot of mistaken impressions about this debate. The most popular canard is that JFK was a natural on television, Nixon was substantive, but therefore played better on radio. That's based on one overnight poll that's methodologically flawed. Another is that Kennedy wore makeup, and Nixon, rife with toxic masculinity, refused. This is the exact opposite, actually. Kennedy didn't wear makeup because he liked his tan after campaigning in California, and Nixon, sickly after injuring himself to the point of hospitalization and then over-campaigning to make up for lost time, smeared shaving cream on his face to make his skin look more even under the lights. But there is one thing that JFK left Nixon in the dust on. He knew, like every candidate after him, that a television debate isn't a real debate. It's not a Lincoln Douglas. It's not a Soho Forum. It's not an Oxford Rules. It's a television show. The audience is there to compare two pieces of fruit and decide which one they want to put into their cart. No matter what the question is, Kennedy immediately pivots to make whatever point he wants. And he's talking directly to the audience when he does so. He draws lines in the sand between him and Nixon. While Nixon, meanwhile, believing that the TV audience will reward a rigorous breakdown of the ideas, spends his first few moments going over what he and Jack agree on. This is a good solution if you are actually debating somebody before delivering the intellectual death blow of why his idea is wrong. In reality, the audience saw that Kennedy came off as more impressive than they thought, and Nixon agreed. And then some other stuff. But let's not get stuck in the past. Let's talk about our big debate on Thursday. Donald Trump, Joe Biden. Due to the unchecked proliferation of primary debates and the fact that these guys have already done a cycle of this, we have a lot of tape, not only on the both of them, but also them debating each other. So we're going to break down in this segment all the things that I believe are really going to matter about what you believe. And since this is a game of optics, let's talk about where they're going to debate. While this will be the first presidential debate to happen in a television studio since 1960, it wasn't that long ago that Joe Biden was debating on national television in a CNN studio. Of course, this was during the very, very, very beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. It was Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders coming to the CNN Washington studio to do this debate. So, what are the first things that you notice visually? This two-shot is very well lit because it's a television studio and not an auditorium, which is normally putting on things like stage plays or talks. Auditorium lighting is more dramatic. Studio lighting is brighter. Also, the podiums look to be closer together than on a stage because the cameras are closer. This isn't going to do either of our two elderly candidates any favors. In fact, I would not be surprised if one of the big lingering takeaways from Thursday is that, holy crap, these guys are old. The debate itself is unremarkable, aside from Biden being very sharp in what turned out to be his core brand of this campaign, being a steady hand on the wheel. In his first segment, obviously about the newly minted lockdowns and COVID, Bernie begins his Medicare for All spiel, and Biden effectively reframes the issue out of the academic and into the present, where he can be somebody that affects change the people want and believe it.
I would call a meeting in the Situation Room of all the experts in America dealing with this crisis. I would sit them down and I would do exactly what we did then. What is it that we need? Listen to the experts. What do we need? And with all due respect to Medicare for All, you have a single-payer system in Italy. It doesn't work there. It has nothing to do with Medicare for all. That would not solve the problem at all.
But let's get back to Thursday. I'm going to make this very clear. In all of the debate prep that I have done, watching both of these men over the years, it is unquestioned. Either of these men are who they used to be. But for my money, Joe Biden has lost more off his fastball than Donald Trump. Here he is 12 years ago debating Paul Ryan in what is considered his finest performance.
My friend recently in a speech in Washington said 30% of the American people are takers. These people are my mom and dad, the people I grew up with, my neighbors. They pay more effective tax than Governor Romney pays in his federal income tax. They are elderly people who, in fact, are living off of Social Security. There are veterans and people fighting in Afghanistan right now who are, quote, not paying any taxes.
Here he is in 2020.
The point is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly.
And here he is 4 months ago during a press conference that he called.
Conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in.
It's not policy. It's not what you know. It's oftentimes not even what you say. It's how it makes people feel. And when you watch all of those back to back, it's hard to argue that the one-time raconteur of the Senate isn't the same guy. So what does Joe Biden need to do? In my opinion, America's biggest fear with Joe Biden that has led him to effectively erase his incumbent advantage is that he's not the guy that he sold himself as in 2020. He's not the steady hand on the wheel. He's not the guy that's going to listen to Bernie talk about Medicare for all and say, well, Italy has it. Let's actually get to what solves America's problems. So why isn't he? Well, obviously, the biggest answer to that question would be age. Now, the visual decline plays into it, but the results do as well. Joe Biden's approval rating tanked when we left Afghanistan in such a mess. And it's not because I believe America really cares about Afghanistan. It's because That's supposed to be a competency thing. In a few minutes, we're going to have Bill Scher of Washington Monthly on, and we're going to specifically spend time and drill down on Joe Biden's messaging. Because, in my opinion, he's got by far the most to lose with this debate. But to put it on a bumper sticker, Joe Biden needs to make persuadable voters believe that he's still there. The world's crazy, and sometimes it deals you a lot of bad cards. You can't argue that when Biden came into power, things were going great. And so, yeah, it's taken longer than you want. But there's a lot of really, really, really good signs. So bet on me. Bet on America. Bet on somebody who's actually going to finish the job and not this selfish con artist. Together, we can pull it off. All right, let's move on over and take a look at Biden's opponent. If you're going to talk about Donald Trump, you have to acknowledge who he is, a phenom. He is the most important politician of his era. This race, like all races involving Donald Trump, will entirely revolve around him. And debates are a very key part of his lore. 2016, this is his first debate, back when Fox News was very hostile to him.
Mr. Trump, it has not escaped anybody's notice that you say that the Mexican government is sending criminals, rapists, drug dealers across the border. Governor Bush has called those remarks, quote, extraordinarily ugly. I'd like you're right next to him, talk to him directly and say how you respond to that. And you have repeatedly said that you have evidence that the Mexican government is doing this, but that you have evidence you have refused or declined to share. Why not use this first Republican presidential debate to share your proof with the American people?
So, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't even be talking about illegal immigration, Chris. You wouldn't even be talking about it. This was not...
Okay, so watch that right there. Number one, he totally pays attention to the question. He totally acknowledges what is being said, and then immediately pivots to tell the story that he wants to tell. I tell the truth. I'm leading this conversation. So don't second guess me on something that would never even cross your lips if I didn't bring it up to begin with.
A subject that was on anybody's mind until I brought it up at my announcement, and I said Mexico is sending.
Mr. Trump, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer my question, which was, what evidence do you have, specific evidence, that the Mexican government is sending criminals across the border? 30 seconds.
Border Patrol, I was at the border last week. Border Patrol people that I deal with, that I talk to, they say this is what's happening because our leaders are stupid. Our politicians are stupid. And the Mexican government is much smarter, much sharper, much more cunning, and they send the bad ones over because they don't want to pay for them. They don't want to take care of them. Why should they when the stupid leaders of...
So when he's pressed, he says, the Border Patrol told me. But I really also want to highlight this here for you guys. This is just the way that Jeb looks at Trump. Like, look at that difference in body language. One dude is looking straight ahead. The other has this very hall monitor energy with his hands behind his back and a smirk. When you talk about the difference between Donald Trump and the class of Republican politician that existed before him, I don't think that you can get better than this frozen picture. Because Trump, at his best, is you. What you would say to these scheming, lying politicians if you had the chance. Donald Trump, at his worst, is your uncle at Thanksgiving, who's picking fights and arguing so much that he's ruining the dinner. It was Donald Trump at his worst that lost him the presidency in 2020. And it was never more on display than the first debate against Joe Biden.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate. We have the...
Now, what's amazing when you rewatch this debate is how much in this first answer, Donald Trump is the exact guy that I believe his people want him to be on Thursday. He is calm. He is reasonable. He is talking in the way that a president would talk.
Good in every way. Good in every way.
And meanwhile, Biden isn't sharp.
The justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice. She seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets.
But then the interruptions start.
Well, there's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
and
just
you don't
be quiet
know
for a minute?
her view on Roe v. Wade.
I don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk.
And they keep coming.
The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well.
And that's the moment. Literally, about 12, Biden is shaky but stands his ground and says, I'm going to get lucky tonight. And I believe that gives him the confidence that takes him through the biggest moment that crystallized not only this debate, but also this race.
Whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court.
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
You're gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're
to answer the
senators.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
You want to
is
put a lot of new Supreme Court justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Boom. Will you shut up, man? And here's why it's an even more unforced error, because Joe Biden was giving a bad answer. Joe Biden was refusing to say whether or not he backed the filibuster and whether or not he'd pack the court. If you just let him do it and then pivoted like he did in 2016 to give exactly your point of view, you are the person talking through Joe Biden to the audience. Did you think that was a little squishy? I do. I think he's out and out lying. I think he definitely wants to pack the court. But by making it about him and Joe, it's just ugly, undignified. And Joe Biden gets his bumper sticker. Well, you shut up, man. Says everything that enough people believed about Donald Trump to prevent him from getting a second term. America during COVID was panicked. And Donald Trump, who desperately wanted to beat the narrative to his will by force, was annoying. He was preventing us from ending this, preventing us from normalcy. As fate would have it, Donald Trump's best moment during COVID came only a few days later because he contracted COVID and he wound up at Walter Reed Medical Center.
Thanking all of the incredible medical professionals, the doctors, the nurses, everybody at Walter Reed Medical Center. I think it's the finest in the world for the incredible job they've been doing. I came here, wasn't feeling so well. I feel much better now. We're working hard to get me all the way back.
He thanks the people that need to be thanked, humanizes those who have contracted the virus, as most of us would eventually, and exemplifies that you should move through this process with bravery. In my opinion, this is the most relatable moment of Donald Trump's presidency because it showed the limits of his oftentimes irritating self-confidence, an ego at rest, thankful for his blessings. But mostly, he's not angry. He's calm. Calm Trump. Crump.
I most of all appreciate what's been said by the American people, by almost a bipartisan consensus of American people. It's a beautiful thing to see, and I very much appreciate it, and I won't forget it. I promise you that.
The Trump of 2016, that as a novelty could effortlessly connect with people, is gone. And reports from within his inner circle say that he knows he came off like a lunatic interrupting Joe Biden in 2020. So will we see the rise of Crump? I think it's necessary if he wants people to believe the following. We all made mistakes during the pandemic. However 2020 went, it's hard to say that the years since have been as good as the years before. I warned about the border. Now it's a disaster. I was mocked for being relentlessly focused on the economy, and now you're paying a fortune at the grocery store and the gas station. Trump makes peace deals. Biden brings war. Trump is still the ones that real Americans bet on. The one that you see yourself in. But the question isn't what they say. It's whether or not you believe them.